Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital, and welcome to our AEW Revolution WrestleCast here. Hello, Apps here from Dimp Digital. Welcome to our AEW Revolution WrestleCast. You're about to hear me and Mr. Paper run through AEW's latest pay-per-view, which took place last weekend, as you're hearing this, or whenever you're hearing this, February the 29th. It was AEW Revolution. It was a pretty stacked card for the roster of AEW, and we're going to go through our thoughts on that. And then the following week, or the next time we publish a WrestleCast, you're going to hear the second part of our conversation. Me and Paper ended up sitting there for nearly 2.5 hours chatting about various bits of wrestling. So this is just the pay-per-view analysis or breakdown or thoughts and opinions part. And then the next edition, you're going to get Paper's backstory and history. So he'll take us back in time about what he remembers from wrestling, how he got into it, how he went out of it and back into it, all the sort of bits and pieces towards that. And then we finish off our discussion with some, kind of more general questions and answers around AEW and the product itself. So one chat, two podcasts. Pro wrestling's back in 2020, that's for sure. And we'll see you on the other side. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Every revolution begins as a dream.
It was your belief and your passion. It started a fire.
Just 1 year ago, All Elite Wrestling was an idea that was willed into existence with a burning passion.
I started this revolution single-handedly, carrying the company on my back. I am revolution.
Wrestlers and fans alike wanted change.
It's a moment of people finally having clarity and thinking, I want change, I want something new.
Together, with its loyal fans, AEW has changed the landscape of professional wrestling.
Revolution means to me a change, a shift in what is considered normal.
Creating unforgettable moments that will last forever.
I think you're going to find there are elements in our pay-per-views, things that you don't expect. And I think that's what you're going to see at Revolution.
For its third consecutive pay-per-view sellout in Chicago, Illinois, AEW returns to the city where the revolution began. This Saturday, join us for AEW Revolution.
Somehow, AEW keeps raising the bar. All of our pay-per-view events are just keep getting better and better, and Revolution looks to be the best one yet.
Where scores are sure to be settled between friendships turned sour, those seeking revenge, and for others to determine who is truly the best in the world. And now, All Elite Wrestling presents Countdown to Revolution.
But we're here to talk about All Elite Wrestling, AEW. We're going to run through the latest pay-per-view, which was AEW Revolution. One note, we are recording this before we've seen the latest episode of Dynamite. These obviously air on a Sunday. We're recording this before we've had a chance to watch Dynamite, so it's like the Fallout show, so we might make a real cock of ourselves if we make predictions that come true and you've already seen, but the way the timing's working, because there's a bit of a delay, by the time we get it here in the UK, it's not always possible to squeeze it in before Sunday and then do a podcast, so just keep that in mind. But how do you think the build-up towards Revolution has gone? Because one thing that I was thinking about the other day was that there are 7 matches on like the main card, something like that. Yeah. And they all had varying different levels of backstory to them, but they all had a reason to be on the card. And it reminded me of when the UFC events used to be 1 or 2 a month, like one big one a month, and everyone on the card, on the main card, you would know because there was enough room for them. Whereas now it's like there's a card every week, so you might get one fighter that you're familiar with. Whereas with Revolution, that like everything on that card, I was like, I understand why it's here, and they've told me why they think it's important.
Yeah, I agree. There was a couple of, I think, what's the best way to say? So they've only, is good. They've only got 3 titles. and so therefore they're always going to get onto the pay-per-view, and there's no sort of what I call shitty title at the moment. You know, like they haven't got like a hardcore or an intercontinental title, so actually the titles sort of all mean something at the moment, which is good. And I feel like all but maybe and including the dark match on the pay-per-view, all sort of but two I probably could have quite happily dropped. But actually, like I think what they did really, the backstory, for example, towards sort of the Cody and MJF's one was really well done. The backstory for the title Mox versus Jericho was really well done. The backstory for the Young Bucks was really well done, and Hangman and Kenny. Everything else was loose, but was still good. So yeah, I agree. But every person on that card, I would say, is one of their top performers. And actually, it's quite harsh because there are top performers that didn't make that card that I was thinking, that would have been really good to have seen them there and stuff like that, and they didn't make it. And there was like it felt like at some point, maybe we'll come into it a bit later, but there was like there are teams like Jurassic Express that are doing really well and getting a lot of attention at the moment, but it just felt like the only way that you could get in was being just sat in the crowd as a part of just the camera pan to them and say, oh look, there's Jurassic Express or whatever. But so yeah, I did feel like they obviously did try, but it's I think they did really well, and I'm really hoping. I think what will kill it for me is if pay-per-views suddenly become monthly, because I feel like they won't have the time to build it up. As at the moment, it's sort of one every sort of 2.5 months, which I think is sort of about right. 4 or 5 a year, maybe.
Yeah, and then I've said is they're aiming for like 4 big ones every year, so 1 a quarter.
Yeah, which I think works really well. And then and I think they're doing it at the moment, have like special dynamites. Like, so like what they did to Jericho's boat one, don't make that into a pay-per-view, just do it as a dynamite, but just do it really good for the extra special. Now they've got one coming up called Blood and Gore, which I'm quite excited about, because I actually quite like the hardcore stuff. That I sort of was really into that. So earlier the Mick Foley stuff, and I've sort of been watching a bit. And there's if you've been watching all the dark stuff, they're clearly bringing Jimmy Havoc back at the moment, and that to me, him against Luther seems to be the thing they're trying to build. And to me, that says that's going to happen at that Dynamite, where they're going to meet, and there's going to be a massive hardcore match there between those two, which I think will be really interesting. So yeah, if they can keep that sort of philosophy up, I'll be happy. Just don't try and sell out, I guess, like the WWEF sort of did. Though it's hard not to when there's money on the table, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I hope they do stick to this, and I think for at least another few years there will be only the sort of 4 big ones a year, and maybe like they've done a couple of smaller ones last year, like Fighter Fest and Fight for the Fallen. One was like a charity sort of event, and the other one was like it was going on at the same time as the gaming convention. It was sort of like a co-promoted thing. But there weren't any big title matches on that. They're just sort of there as extra events and whatnot. But if they keep the main 4, which they've got, which is Revolution, Double or Nothing, All Out, and Full Gear, which was last year's one after Dynamite, then that's at least something to look forward to, and they can build to it. And having that time, I think, is important, because if you've got one every month, you always feel like you've got to do something, you've got to build something new, and then you get into the realm of the main event potentially being like a screw finish, and they have a rematch the very next month, and it's like, well, when are they going to do the proper match and the blow off and whatnot? And sometimes it's valid to do that, but a lot of the time, you come away from a pay-per-view. I'm watching the Attitude Era back, so I'm in 99 now, November time. Jesus Christ, I mean, I've been watching it since 96, and the amount of pay-per-views, because it's a monthly system, that are just, there's nothing resolved, and it's just you can imagine paying for that and being like, fucking hell, that was a waste of my time. There's nothing been resolved, and I've got nothing out of that. So keep them at this sort of 4 proper ones a year, and I think that's a good way of doing it.
I think it just allows you to build up that soft tension as well, for example, and we'll come on to it later on when we go through it, but the way they've built up at the moment the Bucks versus Hangman and Page, and that soft tension between Hangman throughout the thing, they haven't had to oversell that really quickly, like it suddenly just happened. They can slowly bring that to the table, and it's therefore made it feel a lot better executed come the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I'm enjoying. It's a bit more of a slow build, but you know, it seems like most of the stuff that they do in the build-up pays off if you stick with it, which is important. It clocked in at about 3.5 hours. Now, going back to when you would watch it, it was no more than 2 hours 45 minutes because they had like a 3-hour sort of hard cut off.
Yeah.
Some of their last, I think Double or Nothing was nearly 4 hours, or maybe over 4 hours, and so was All Out, which is a bit long. But how did you find the sort of 3.5 hour runtime?
So I watched it all through. Obviously, I watched on catch up, and so I saw that it was 3.5 hours when I first put it on, because you stick playing it, pops up as every. So I was like, oh, actually, this is longer than I was expecting. But it was actually quite good, and I don't think. I don't think at any point did I feel like it was too long. All the matches seemed to flow relatively well, and nothing seemed to sort of drag. And so, yeah, actually, if to be honest, it sort of feels like, and I don't know the previous pay-per-views, but it sort of feels like if they feel like it needs to go 4 hours, they'll let it go 4 hours. If it doesn't, like it clocks up at 3.5, or if it clocks up at 3 hours, then that's what it is, as long as they put on a good show. And I'm more than happy for that. I guess you're getting bang for your buck as well the longer it goes on, but obviously you don't want it to go on longer and just have a load of, you know, crap wrestling that you don't care about. Whereas this, as you said earlier, everything put on was really well done. So for me, 3.5 hours was fine. With that sort of time limit is a big chunk of time, and so obviously if you watch it live in the UK, you'll be watching it in the middle of the night, which is, so therefore it's probably not from you just giving up sleep. But then if you want to watch it the next day, I was lucky that the next day I sort of was not doing anything on the Sunday afternoon, so I could just attribute that time. But I can definitely see a point where if I was to watch it, say like the Sunday morning, I'd be able to maybe watch an hour or two, go off and do what I need to do, then come back to it in the evening. But that, I think, would be the case for any sort of pay-per-view over sort of Dynamite. Dynamite sort of that sort of sweet 2 hour spot, I guess, where you can just about fit it in one sit-in, whereas, you know, anything longer than that, you know, life just gets in the way sometimes.
Yeah. The good thing with Dynamite is if you skip through the break, it's an hour and a half, so it's even shorter, so it's a bit more easy to digest.
Just do what I do, is skip over the women's fights.
Well, if I had known what was to come on Revolution, I would have certainly done that in this case, because spoiler alert, that was not a good match. But I was worried I was going to run very long on this one, because that's the one thing that I thought. I've watched the first Double or Nothing. I've watched all the events pretty much since they had their first event last year in May, and every time I did an event, it was too long. Like, I was just like, some of the stuff on here. Granted, they didn't have the TV to build up the matches, so it was a lot more disconnected for me. But they were running like over 4 hours, and there was like a few matches that would go over half an hour. And I was like, some of these matches don't need to go that long. Like, you can do them in like 12 minutes, which is you know, a sweet spot for a match that's a bit of back and forth and got a decent finish. Like, obviously, you want to have your odd epics that go 20, 25 minutes, but. You know, that I was concerned that they would, all the pay-per-views, because they want to be inclusive and have everyone on the card, like you said, Jurassic Express, they'll just find a match to put them in, and then that'll be another 12, 15 minutes on that. But they were quite restrained here. They only put stuff on that had some sort of story to it, which was good. You get to decide the next course of action. Do you want to go from start to finish, or do you want to work backwards from the main event and then get to the start of the event?
Let's go. You know, start to finish, because I think that's probably better in terms of the, you know, getting some of the what I'd call the poorer matches out of the way with early on, and so stick around to listen to the later matches, which are, you know, Grand Slam.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk. We will talk about the pre-show match, but not for this moment. We're going to focus just on what was on the pay-per-view portion. So kicked off with Jake Hager versus Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah.
Now, you won't have seen what Jake Hager did to Dustin Rhodes back in like November when I was, watching it from the beginning. He slammed his arm in a car. So this match goes back to like November, technically, where like it was incepted. So again, that's something I'd forgotten about. And then when I saw it in the video recap, I was like, of course, that's why this match has started pretty much. But this kicked off the event itself. It ran for 14.5 minutes. Nothing really to write home about. It was a solid. I thought it was a solid sort of opener. The only weird thing that I thought that I was a bit bemused about was that Jake Hager's wife was featured in it quite a lot, and I'd not seen her. I was aware that he had a wife, but she hadn't been on TV before this, and she played it. She was in a few of the little segments of the match. But what did you think of this as an opener? Because sometimes what you want to do is the philosophy is you set the pace fairly quickly of what's going to come. But this was a bit more of a slower, methodical match. Obviously, Dustin's 50 odd, and Hager's this is his first wrestling match for AEW since he's arrived.
Yeah, for me, as I said, I missed when he broke his arm. So it didn't have as much resonance with me. I saw them building it up beforehand. Obviously, every now and then Dustin would jump in the ring to take on or just to take out Jake get his own back. The build up, and you could tell that's where they was going. It was one of those sort of solid matches. It sort of felt like they wanted to give Jake a bit of a push, and Dustin's sort of an old timer that could probably take the hit, but he could also help carry Jake through that first wrestling match, especially as it's on pay-per-view. And so, they did take a bit of a risk doing that. I think it worked out okay. I have one comment next to, I put a comment next to all the matches, but I put bit rapey. When Dustin kissed Jake's wife, I just thought when that happened, I went, well, he can't win now because with this whole sort of Me Too movement and equality and stuff like that.
When
that happened, I thought, oh, come on, that was a little bit, that wasn't really needed. That was a bit of a strike back to, I guess, something I thought I might see maybe in the 90s, maybe not so much in 2020s. So for me, that I didn't really enjoy that part of it, and I thought if Dustin wins now, that I completely don't get it. And so it's all, even though he was the babyface and Jake was the heel, it sort of gave Jake the ability to win by doing that, if that makes sense, because you just look and think, why would you do that?
Slap him. That's surely a legitimate response, isn't it? Like in 2020, if a woman tries to slap you, you can try and. Is that not how it works? I'm not sure.
I don't know. He could have done whatever he wanted to her, but just not rape her, or kiss her, should I say? Yeah. But it just that to me was a bit,
I couldn't believe they put that in. Like they've made a point of like. We will talk about Nyla Rose later on, obviously transgender female athlete who's the champion. So they're banging like the inclusivity drum as they should, trying to get a wide variety of people. I'm sure there's definitely still bits and pieces they need to do to fulfil their vision of that. But then to have this spot in the match, I was a bit like, am I watching like Goldust from '98? That's the sort of stuff he used to do. Exactly. And it was like all back then. It was like, oh yeah, ha funny. But you're right. In today's climate, I couldn't believe that was in there. But he didn't go on and win.
No.
And he lost there. We did a little predictions type thing, and I had Hager to win, and you had Dustin.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just went. I didn't have a feeling either way, and I wasn't sure. I just thought they'd go babyface on this one. But
what I think they're trying to do with Hager? I've seen over the months that a few times him and Luchasaurus have had a little bit of a standoff in the ring.
Okay.
Like, they're both big guys, and I think they are gearing towards that being a singles feud at some point. And obviously Hager's not wrestled, so you want to get him off the mark and make him seem legit and not like a complete washout. Because if he'd lost clean to like 55-year-old Dustin, you'd be like, right, is he actually any good, this Hager?
Yeah.
And they like to lean into his MMA side of things. But I can see those two clashing at some point.
Yeah, I guess that's to me was the only sort of match that they could have probably had on the Dynamite, or was worthy of a Dynamite over a pay-per-view. I guess I can understand why they put it on, but it's probably the only one that I thought, that didn't need to be on the pay-per-view. But then thinking about what else would have I had on the pay-per-view, I don't know. So, But yeah, it was a solid start. It was nothing special. It had its downfall, and we also ranked them all in order, and this was one of my lower ranked fights.
This was second from bottom for me, and I don't even think it's a bad match.
No,
it just wasn't compared to what else was on the card. I felt there was better matches. So,
and maybe that's a bit as well. Like it's worth noting that it was actually a relatively entertaining match. It was just in the comparison to what comes later on in the card, it just got blown out the water. So it probably was unfair to Justin and Jake that it sort of sits quite low, but everything else, or majority of everything else, was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it almost got blown out the water the very next match because we had Darby Allin versus Sammy Guevara, and this was a good match. I mean, the actual official time of the match is 5 minutes because if you remember, they didn't actually officially start the match because Darby sort of toe-paged straight out at Sammy before they both got in the ring. So that gave them the excuse to go mad basically on the outside and do some spots that you'd normally get DQ'd for. You didn't have to worry about any count-outs.
Yeah.
But these are two young up-and-comers showing what they can do. And there was some fantastic spots in the match and some really terrifying ones. Like the one that sticks out for me was Darby doing the suicide dive through the ropes, and he caught his foot on the rope on the way through, or his leg, and Sammy was sort of leaning on the fan barricade, and because he got his foot caught, he didn't make it and fell flat on the actual the concrete flooring outside, and that looked like that could have easily gone wrong. Like if he'd caught his foot and just turned, he could have landed on his neck. There was a wrestler in Mexico called La Parca that did that exact move, but it botched it like that, caught his neck. He was in AAA, and he ended up dying from that eventually.
Okay.
Like 2 months later, he died from it, and I was just thinking, Jesus, that was like terrifying. And then fucking Sammy Guevara doing a 450 splash from off the top rope to the outside through a table. I was like, what are these two doing? But it was a spot fest, but it was enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, it was probably one of the best matches on the whole card. In terms of, and I'd probably go into say in terms of singles matches and putting on sort of pure wrestling was probably not pure wrestling, but like entertaining wrestling is probably the best fight on the card for that aspect. And the reason it was so good was because they did that sort of before the bell work where they allowed, as you said, it allowed two up and coming wrestlers, pro wrestlers to just go for each other and say, look, let's just do the most wacky, crazy things that we could. It's probably the biggest spotlight both of them have ever been in terms of visibility and on a pay-per-view. They've just come through and stuff like that, and so it really gave them that opportunity to go. And I can see them, like before the match, working to get together to try and sort of come up with like, what shall we do? How can we up this? How can we up that? And it also credits them, as you said, when Darby is his foot on doing that dive out, that could have gone wrong, but they played with it. Like it didn't go wrong, thankfully, but they used that and they continued going through that, and obviously you got the commentary and that picking up on it straight away. And I think that was quite nice. They didn't try and hide it. They just carried. They used that as a part of the story slightly changed of the fight that they're. And I guess that's what a sign of a good wrestler, that if something different happens, which I'm sure happens all the time in matches, and they have to divert from where they wanted to go, they can do that. I thought it was really well done. One of the most enjoyable fights for the card, and it was just so good. I guess when that came on, I couldn't believe that we'd just been given that fight that early on in this card. Like in terms of when it finished, I was like, wow, that was amazing. I was thinking everything else is going to like not live up to this now. It was really well put on, and I'd be interested to know how they picked the order of the card on this beforehand. Did they know that what everyone was going to do beforehand? Go, actually, you need to go first, second, third, and stuff like that. Because I think I'm gonna come on to it later. Like, sort of like get the second from last fight. Like, I would have never put that on the second from last. But it was it'd been really interesting. But it was really good. Thumbs up for me from that one.
Yeah, I mean those two have got Seems like Darby Allin's getting really over as well, like as a baby face. I'm interested to see what they do with him. And Sammy's just like, you just want to punch the prick in the face every time you see him. He's got the most slappable face and hair you've ever seen. But Darby didn't get his hands on him at the end because Hager come out and saved him. So I can see them having another match down the line where Darby wants to really lay the booting on him, but we'll see where they go with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the order itself, because that was a great match. Officially only 5 minutes, but it was a great match, believe you me. We then rolled into Hangman and Omega versus the Young Bucks. 30 minutes 56, World Tag Team title. They've been setting this one up subtly and not so subtly for weeks and weeks and weeks. They're both from the same faction, the Elite, or both teams are. It's sort of friends going at it for the greater good. Who's going to be the best? And what a match this was. This easily one of the best since I've started watching wrestling again. This is easily the best tag team match I've seen.
Oh, both for sure.
The build up to it was great, and that I had literally no idea who would win, how it would go down, and that's a good place to be. And they've left themselves also other options to still work with, like the story, particularly between Hangman and Omega, is not over. And they've put on a really satisfying and great match between four really talented wrestlers.
Yeah, and the thing is, you just didn't know where it was going to go. Like, only a couple of days before, Omega had a 30-minute match with Pac, which was probably, I'd probably go as far as say is probably my favourite singles match since watching AEW, and maybe one of my favourite singles matches ever. And
it's on free TV.
Yeah, exactly. And it was
crazy.
And like you look at it and think, well, are AEW going to maybe start trying to push Omega now, and so that he gets one up on a top 5 competitor, and so actually maybe they're going to look to them to lose the titles, and they'll go with the Young Bucks, and the Young Bucks should always are going to win it. Or then you also think, but are they going to hold it off from the Young Bucks, because there's a storyline there that they can play where Young Bucks clearly the best tag team in the world, but it's probably they might hold the title away from them for years and years. Just
to prove it, climb the top of the mountain.
And exactly, and so when they do get it, everyone's like, oh my god, and maybe they don't want to give it to them too early, and so it might not. They might not. I can see the Young Bucks actually not winning it for a couple more years. That whole sort of thing, keep the streak sort of not a losing streak going, because everyone knows that they deserve to win it, but they'll never get it until they that one time when no one expects them to win it.
Keep the brass ring away.
But then just the match itself was spectacular. I noticed for quite a lot of it, I felt like maybe until sort of the final third, Kenny sort of kept out of it a bit. Like, he was involved a lot, but it felt like he wasn't doing as much of his high flying sort of stuff that he would normally do. But then obviously towards the end that definitely picked up, and I wasn't sure whether that was them trying to play like he just obviously had this Iron Man match before, or whether he was still trying to recover.
He was selling his shoulder all the way through it. So
and that became a part of the storyline in it, where the Bucks were pulling it off, and there was this. They did a really good job of putting on a really good match with lots of high flying skills, lots of these different moves, but also telling a story for it. Also, like, there was the parts where Hangman would spit, and I always get mixed up between whichever Young Buck it is, but spits on Matt, and then
on Matt Hardy, we'll just call him the Hardy Boys.
Yeah, the Hardy Boys, and then Jeff came in and sort of said to Matt, and then they come and say, "Oh wait, no, let's stop, break it up," and stuff like that, and they did a really good job in the way, like when he was, and I forget what the move is called, where he's like, I guess German suplex, and it's not German suplexing, on the ramp.
The Northern Lights.
And doing that, and then on the third one is like, I shall do the third time and stuff like that, and then he does it and so forth. And I thought it was a really good sell, and like there was so many sort of that finish would finish anyone any other day of the week, and people were just kicking out of it, and it kept going, and it was like at no point did it feel like it needed to finish.
Yeah, it didn't feel long. It
didn't feel like, and there were other matches where you think, well, they can do something like here, or it just seems like they slowed it down a bit. But like for this, it just felt like it never slowed down, and it was at a really good pace.
Yeah. So one of my, I'll go back to the sort of predictions and sort of weave them in as and when they're relevant. But there's a few questions that we asked. We've done like match results, and then we did things like, will the Exalted One reveal himself, like the leader of the Dark Order? Is there going to be any new wrestlers that turn up? Will there be a DQ finish, a count-out finish? But one of the ones I put in there was, will anyone, team, manager, or individual, turn? So will they go from babyface to heel, or from heel to babyface? Sometimes they don't always make it obvious. They plant seeds, but other times you can clearly see they've done that. And my prediction for that was the Young Bucks.
To turn heel.
I thought they were going to get so desperate to prove that they would be tag team champions that they would take a shortcut or do something that was a bit unsavoury just to get the belts, and it would come across as desperate. And because when you listen to the entrances, like the Young Bucks were, and during the match, everyone was after Hangman to win. Like, he was
exactly.
Clearly the most popular, and they were booing the Young Bucks. Even though Hangman started the whole unsavoury thing by spitting on, Matt to start with, people were still desperate to see Hangman and Omega retain that. So I think the Young Bucks would actually make really good heels because they've got slappable faces and little, like, I can see them being really antagonising, but that didn't come to fruition. I thought that sometimes they were sort of teasing it a little bit, but
I feel like they've set it up so it could still happen. There was definitely points through that match where I was thinking, are the Bucks turning heel here? But there was nothing really obvious where they did something absolutely like that is heel turn. But like there was definitely points where I was thinking, people like in that scenario, people don't want the Bucks to win, and they were booing and jeering and stuff like that. And maybe, and you don't know that they'll look at it and think, well, this is perfect. Maybe there's a chance we should turn these guys heel, and then because that was set up quite nicely. Because apart from the Butcher and the Blade, there isn't really. Well, there are a few, but tag team wise, I don't feel like there's really that much heel. There's quite a lot of baby faces in the tag division that people
criminally underuse the Lucha Brothers, who are like a heel tag team. They are excellent, but for whatever reason, they haven't managed to find proper space for them since like Dynamite started. So I'm hoping they can introduce them a bit more. But I think they've misused them. They make a great heel team. But you're right, like they've not built up any other sort of solid heel teams that you think. Like, if the Dark Order ever take on Hangman and Omega, I'll be like, they should be beating them quite handedly.
Yeah,
I don't feel like they're on the same level as these two. But I mean, I wonder what they will do, because there's like a really low hanging fruit, and the obvious one is that they'll try and turn Hangman, but he's so popular, I don't know if it would work.
Yeah.
Like I could see him doing something like that's supposed to sort of turn him, and the crowd are still with him. And then you've got that awkward situation where you've tried to tell the audience what you want them to do, and they don't.
Yeah.
They stick with the heel, and it creates an unsavoury atmosphere for the other people that are facing them, who are supposed to be babyface. I hope that they recognise that Hangman is very, very popular, and they keep him as a babyface, because one of my criticisms going back to like before TV started was Hangman was in the first title match against Jericho.
Okay.
At All Out. He was like the build is Jericho v Hangman. It was built towards that, and they done a really bad job of making Hangman feel important. He didn't feel like he had any momentum going into that. And 6 months later, he's clearly on the rise, and they found something in terms of just drinking the beer and going to the crowd and being a bit of a loner, a bit of an arse, but not like so much that people hate him, and people are really attached themselves to that. So I hope that they don't turn the Hangman at some point, because I think it would be difficult to get people to respond how they want.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. They've got that, and I imagine Hangman merch is selling through the roof at the moment. I think for them it works, even if they just sort of die down sort of the Bucks sort of against. Though I still think that feud could still play out quite happily for another couple of months. There's something still building there, even if it means that the Bucks sort of go away a bit and sort of, they let that brew a little bit longer, because there's definitely something that needs to be resolved. Because I guess like we spoke about earlier, but this was in a good way. I don't feel like that feud's been resolved yet. I still don't know what the answer is. I still don't know where Kenny's head is. I thought at the very end of that fight, Hangman was going to take out Kenny. When they started looking at it, and I was thinking, is he going to do what? I don't know what it's called, where he flips over the bugshot. That's it. And I thought, and it was like setting up like, he's going to do it. He's really going to turn heel and go against everyone. But but he didn't. He obviously opened up, and so I think there's an interesting observation here where where does Kenny go, because he's and stuff like that, and so I think there's some interesting stuff, and hopefully they'll keep them going. I think for the company's sake, it'd be good for them to hang on for the titles for quite a while. I don't know how long, but I don't feel like they should be handing over anytime too soon. It feels like they've got a really good tag team that sort of come together there through a bit of luck, really. But it's better than a lot of the other sort of proper tag teams.
Yeah, until they find something compelling for them to do individually, which might be them facing each other eventually, they should stay as the champs and whatnot. I really thought the Young Bucks were going to super kick Omega at the end as well. Like, when they're doing the handshake thing, I was like, oh, this is the chance. This is going to be it. They're going to kick his head off, and that will definitely turn him, because you can understand them kicking Hangman's head off because he's been an arsehole. But Omega's been trying to be the peacekeeper between all of them, but it didn't happen. We'll see what happens with that down the line. So back to back, two great matches, and then they send out the women. Now, when we watched it back in the day, like the Attitude Era, let's be honest, the women's wrestling was a joke. It was all tits and arse, and it was just there for that, basically. I felt like TNA done a better job, like Gail Kim, like you mentioned earlier, and Awesome Kong were brilliant. Like, they actually had good matches.
I enjoyed watching the women's matches in TNA. Like I felt like they actually, it was for the first time I felt like in my life that people had brought women's wrestling to the sort of forefront mainstream back in TNA, and I was like, oh, that's great. And actually, I feel like WWE have sort of picked up a little bit on that. They've really tried to, bring that back more to the stage, even though there's still some jokes going on there.
Yeah, I mean, WWE are leaps and bounds ahead in terms of the women's division. Like, they got 3 brands: NXT, Raw, and SmackDown, and every single wrestler on that roster is probably better than anything AEW have got. And it really showed here, because this match, I mean, it was a bit of a tough gig, because they came out after that, absolute epic between the Young Bucks, Omega, and Hangman, but the match itself was just bad. Yeah, it just felt like they worked hard, but it didn't seem that they clicked. There was some botched spots. I remember Statlander went to do like a little kip up and fell over, and I was like, oh god, that's really embarrassing. Then you had Excalibur trying to fucking tell us that she's got fucking like anti-gravity flu or some bullshit like that, and then Tony and JR were like, look, stop with that bullshit. That really, that's my favourite bit of Dynamite and Chris Statlander, is JR asking Excalibur about her gimmick, and then when he starts to tell him, he just goes, nope, don't want to hear it, it's nonsense, and just completely shutting it down. This match was not good, I don't think.
No, and I was like, I've seen Nyla Rose a little bit, and I think she's an okay wrestler. She's sort of a bit like, I guess, like a Mark Henry of the women's world. She is sort of what she is. She's a bigger girl, and
she's like Awesome Kong almost back in the day, like a bigger, dominant, like powerful.
Except
imposing.
Except I feel she probably needs to tighten up her wrestling a little bit. But
she's nowhere near on that level.
Yeah, nowhere near what Awesome Kong is. But it's similar to Awesome Kong. But Chris Statlander, I've always actually, from her Dynamite matches, I've actually enjoyed watching her Dynamite matches. I know I made the joke earlier, like you just skip through it, but actually, when Chris Statlander's fighting, I will watch her, because I think she's probably all the female wrestlers they got there, one of the top ones. And so for me, like, her getting a title shot made sense. I knew she would never get the title, because bloody Nyla Rose only got it like literally a week or so before, and so they're never going to change it that quick on such a new promotion. But it's my comment next to it was there was too many misses, like where it just looked I like punches that just was so far away from connecting, and some, I think there was a drop kick that was completely missed, and but I think that then that Nyla Rose reacted to and stuff like that, and I was thinking it missed, and when it's stuff like that, is it like that sort of pulls the immersion away from the fight a little bit. I do sort of I do like a gimmick and stuff like that, but Statlander's gimmick is getting a bit too far. I feel like her gimmick, and it maybe even tried to start off like that way, but that she should be some sort of like crazy person that feels like she was taken away, but it feels like it's gone too far now, that everyone's trying to believe that she is actually really an alien, and it's like, well, no, like if everyone else sort of like humoured it in such a way that she is just like a person that's, thinks she got, I think they could sell that a lot better. But like as you said, when Excalibur was saying like all this flu stuff, and it's like stop, pandering it. It's just you need to go a sort of a different route with it, because it's not that's the type of stuff that is 80s, 90s wrestling. Yeah. It's not the 2020s sort of gimmicks. Like you can have gimmicks like Librarian and stuff shit like that, but when you start going to things like Aliens and stuff like that, it's like it's like Jungle Express. They don't bloody think they're a fucking dinosaur or a boy that was actually hanging around with dinosaurs. I feel like there's some sort of awareness there, I just don't feel like there's that for Chris, and it's a shame, because I feel like she is one of the better female wrestlers in the promotion at the moment. It just didn't come off on the day. There was just too many misses. And it was followed by one of the best matches, and then equally it was probably the worst match of the card.
Oh yeah, easily. It wasn't even close. Like this wasn't. I was at one point. I think the finish was her doing like the beast bomb off the turnbuckle.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to break her neck, because she sort of couldn't quite hold her up, and then she had her feet on the outside of the turnbuckle. And then she put one foot in and then sort of just fell off of it. And I was like, good God, that could have easily gone wrong there. Like it feels like they try and do stuff that they're not sound enough to pull off consistently.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing going back to that Dynamite match between Pac and Hangman, Pac done a top rope brainbuster on Kenny, like suplex, held him up, bang, dropped him like on the back of his neck. It looked like, but it was safe. But that's like a truly like well worked, performer there and talent who can do that consistently. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. It feels like sometimes the women, they're trying to catch up with WWE because they're doing all this amazing stuff, but they haven't quite got the fundamentals to pull it off. But yeah, it was a bit too long. It should have been 10 minutes, but.
Yeah, and that was the thing as well. I think 5 minutes in the match and then realising that they have got a 60-minute time limit, there's a part of me that starts dreading watching the rest of it, because
it's going to go this full 60 minutes.
You just had a previous time match that was a 60-minute match that went to 13 minutes, and you're thinking, oh, fuck, let's hope this is not going to 30 minutes. And it's sort of like when you start thinking about that during a match, and I feel really bad because it's the women's match, and I honestly didn't want it. It's nothing to do with it being the women's match, but it was just dire. And
it's
like
it's honestly, I'll read a lot on the internet. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and it's a common theme. Like the AEW's women's division is just not up to snuff with what they're trying to do and the amount of time they're giving them. They definitely need some work there.
Yeah, it was like the women's, and it's not to pick on it, but the women's match in the Dynamite before the 4-way was just an awful match, and like
pointless.
Yeah, and like some of the moves that. And actually, we've had it's not just women, but who was the chat Riho? Like she's got the super stomp, and I just look at it, and I think that's poor. Like why? That's not even going to hurt anyone. That little stomp on the size of her, and it doesn't sell it to me, and that's the problem. I just don't feel like I'm being sold. Like I don't want it to be the same product as the men, but I just want this to put on a show that I can sort of believe in and just sort of turn off and think, oh, I'm enjoying this. And I feel like I've not, and like and I got that from the women's division in TNA. They were fantastic. I just at the moment am not getting that from the women's division in AEW, and it just unfortunately that let the card down massively on AEW at the weekend.
Yeah, it wasn't good at all. We then followed into the Cody and MJF match, which we both pointed out. Like the build to that's just been the best.
Yeah.
Like we've had the back and forths, we've had the promos, we've had the stipulations. We've seen Cody get whipped like a full 15 minutes that took, but it was worth it. We had the cage match where Cody nearly killed himself doing a moonsault off that ridiculously high cage. And you felt like this was a really personal feud for Cody because, obviously, as you had seen in the video packages, he cost him the title against Jericho by throwing the towel in, and then it turned out he was, he'd turned on him basically, and he'd done it on purpose. And the stipulation of that match was that Cody can never challenge for the belt again if he didn't win it. So not only did he cost him the title, and I'm sure they'll get out of this in the future, but for now, Cody can't challenge for the world title. So this had something really personal going into it, and the build-up was just superb. But the match, particularly from Cody's side, I just don't feel like it had the right level of intensity.
No, I got a comment next to it that said it started slow.
Oh yeah.
It just felt it just felt like, oh, we're going to get into this. When's the because MJ
Cody's fire for this. I was thinking like he surely wants to beat the shit out of him, and yet it's paced like a slow paced sort of slow build wrestling match.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be more of a fight. If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought they would have used the opportunity more to sort of even just sort of show, because obviously it's a show, but it will equally show what MJF has got in his locker. It's on the bigger stage, and it just didn't feel like that to start with. It definitely picked up, but it for me it did start pretty slow, and I remember looking at the clock thinking, oh, we're still going at the start, and then it did pick up. There was, and it's MJF as well. There's a lot of gimmicks in it, rather than just pure wrestling. But I feel like it was the opportunity to have that scrap and have a bit more of a pure wrestling fight. But yeah, it was all right. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I feel like we were maybe being a bit too negative about it, but there were some really good points in it. I did like the super kick to Al. Is it Al? Al?
On Anderson.
On Anderson.
Put him right in the fucking neck, though. I thought he might have actually hurt the poor old bastard here.
Yeah, that was a good. I didn't see that bit coming. I thought that was quite interesting. And I actually, one of the questions you asked was, which mentioned, would you think anyone would turn? And I thought he might turn against Cody.
Oh yes, he can't be trusted on. He's got a history of his dad, all this stuff.
Exactly, and so I thought
do your research
and there was
that he didn't get on.
And there was the bit where there was a steel cage where MJF was trying to tempt him to smack the door in his face and stuff like that, and he was thinking
about him like he did his daddy.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I thought he was going to turn, and I in my head I thought that's what would cost Cody the fight, and it would be something. But obviously that didn't happen. But yeah, there was some nice dynamics going on there. I did enjoy the match.
Yeah, no, I think the only reason I pulled it out and started off on a negative tone was because I felt like the build-up far superseded what the match was.
Oh, it's the best
because they've done such a good job of that, and the match didn't live up to it. Now you could argue that the match doesn't live up to it because it's not the blow-off. Like I think they're going to have another match at some point, and Cody will go over eventually. And maybe he'll go over beating all the odds, like Arn would have turned by then, and he'll be up against it. But yeah, I don't know. I thought there would just be more fire in Cody's. And then it started off poor as well, because that live band for Cody's music was dreadful. Like, that was... I thought, this is poor. Like, I love his entrance music when it's just playing out of the speakers, but the live band they had put on... Good Lord.
It felt very much like a poor imitation of, do you remember when Triple H got Motorhead to do his introduction?
It was.
There might be a big band, but I don't know who they are. It's not like bringing Motorhead out, put it that way, when Triple H did it. So it's a bit of an odd one.
The other thing that's been setting Twitter and all the wrestling forums alight is Cody's neck tattoo.
Is that real?
Hate it. It's real.
Oh no, I was hoping it was a fake thing. I thought when I looked, I thought like, they painted that on or something like that. And I'm thinking it's not rubbing off, because it looks like one of those stick-on tattoos. I thought it was generally one of, like, I was thinking, it's going to fade off or be rubbed out. But never went. Yeah, I don't like that. That was horrendous.
Not something you're going to go and get out.
No, I didn't realise that was real. Fucking hell.
You've been talking about tattoos. Like, that's surely a good first.
Yeah, but I wouldn't get one, like. Yeah, but not on the neck.
There is there's a YouTube video up, the road to Denver, I think it is, for this week's Dynamite. It's part of the build up to that. He addresses the tattoo thing, so have a little watch and see what you think. I don't think it quite excuses it. I imagine if you're Brandy Rose, like his wife, you're fuming with that.
I don't know. Her tits are all over the internet, so I'm sure he's got a reason.
Are they?
Well,
she was a model before, I think.
Yeah.
You've obviously been looking stuff up. We then moved to... I'd forgotten about this match. I was sitting there in my head, and I was like, it's the match.
No, before we go on to that, I think we probably should just address the way... I personally, for me, really enjoyed the way MJF sort of beat Cody, with the ring. It fitted in really nicely with all the build up and what they were doing. Because actually, at first, I didn't, and maybe it was just poor camera work. I didn't realize he'd pulled the ring out because he didn't hold it up or anything like that. He just quickly snuck it on and turned around and smacked it. And I was like, and he went down straight away. And I was like, how the hell has that happened? And he got on. I was like, how's that finished? And obviously on the replays, it all came out. And I was like, and that made more sense. But I thought it was a really good way sort of just to wrap up the thing. And it's MJF is, and this ring is clearly going hand in hand through what he's doing. It's been built up and stuff like that. And so I thought, and equally, it was a nice way for, the babyface to lose unfairly, if that makes sense.
Yes,
it wasn't like MJF deserved the win in any sort of way whatsoever. He clearly, it feels like he cheated it. And they've left it open. Though, to me, I would be interested to see what AEW are going to do with it. I would like to actually think that they're not put to bed, but Cody's going to go off on maybe a different way at the moment, because I feel like I don't know what they can really do with the MJF apart from them keep going at each other, or everyone turns against Cody and it's just Cody the lone wolf eventually winning the odds. But I did enjoy the ending for that fight.
Yeah, I think they'll give it a breather, but I think they'll meet at the next pay-per-view and then Cody will get his win. I think that's what they'll do. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but
I don't know. I quite like. I feel like MJF, a bit like Sammy and Darby Allin, is one of these young people in the company that I think they
23.
really. Yeah, exactly. Who they really want to. And I feel like the company are trying to give them a push, and I feel like if they can probably keep MJF with this type of character, building his way up through the ranks, and there's definitely some maybe not against like the Packs, but against the maybe like the Kennys and you can maybe see him and Jericho doing something together. They'd make a great sort of duo for something. I don't know what, but you could see that them pushing MJF a bit, and maybe he doesn't make it all the way to the top, but he would definitely be if they wanted to give the Mox Jericho thing a bit of a rest, someone that they could probably put up against Mox, because he's proper heel against a proper baby face, and so there's things that they can do there.
Yeah, for sure. We then got into our second from last match, and like I said, I'd forgotten this match was even on the card. I'd just completely forgotten that it existed. Oh, interesting. The prediction, for the Cody MJF. You chose MJF, I went with Cody.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if you had some inside information.
I just thought, so my I wasn't inside information. I had thought that there might be a turn heel, which obviously didn't happen. But my thought about it was, it's so obvious for Cody to win because he's gone on this massive journey that if they really wanted to play things up, exactly. He's gone through everything. Imagine the guy that goes through everything and then just loses. And no one's expecting that. The arena, the arena just went quiet. No one saw it. And beforehand, I think it's more the fact that I tend to find myself cheering on the heel more times than the baby face, if I'm being honest, personally. And so there was a part of me that quite likes that. And so I thought it would be, if they really, really wanted to shock people or do something completely different, that is the way to do it. And so I thought I'll just give that a bash. And right.
Paid off, yeah. We then had Pac v Orange Cassidy.
Yeah.
I hope this surprised you, because I kind of had some knowledge that Orange Cassidy could go and wrestle when he needed to. And we know Pac is excellent because we've seen him in so many good matches just already. When I remember you texted me when you found out that they were booking this match for the pay-per-view, what was you thinking, sitting there thinking, Pac versus Orange Cassidy, what on earth are they doing there? Yeah,
so in my head, I had no idea what they're doing. I was just thinking, Pac's just gone over. Do they to Kenny in the last Dynamite? do they just want to give him some sort of easy win? And because like they clearly want to keep promoting Pac because he's a great athlete and a wrestler. And so I was thinking maybe just absolutely go over and just let Orange Cassidy just have an absolutely beating, and just it also gives the fans what they want because everyone loves Orange Cassidy, and get him to do a couple of these little gimmicks that were there. But yeah, no, massively surprised by the match, but I don't know what they were thinking. To be fair, even now, like, don't get me wrong, the match was spectacular. We're coming to that. I still can't fathom why they decided to do that match. It's to me, it was a very loose build up to it, if that makes sense. There was no no backstory like most of other things that on this. It was very much like, it just sort of happened because they were clearly placed in a position where they had to interact with each other from time to time. Like especially like the one before where just after Pac lost. Orange Cassidy came out on Dynamite and just sort of stood there. It's like, why are they doing that? Like, it makes no sense. So yeah, but the match itself, spectacular. But yeah, like the backstory, there was none. But I don't think it needed it.
No, I think it was purely there to just get Orange Cassidy over and show that he can wrestle, because most people that haven't watched him on the indie scene, which will be most people that are watching Dynamite, they would have seen him doing like his shtick at the moment where he's like the sloth and does the slow kicks, and he always gets punched or kicked by someone. And you've seen little glimpses of him doing like hands in pockets dives and things off the top rope and avoiding people. But I think they thought, we'll book Pac there because everyone knows Pac's like badass, doesn't take any shit, and most people expect him just to squash him. And then what we'll do is we'll flip the script a little bit and give Cassidy a really good showing to show that in the ring, when he wants to, he can wrestle. And this was a very, very entertaining match. And actually, on your list was your second highest rated match.
Yeah, it was third. But the thing was, just even yesterday, I went back and watched it again. It was so entertaining. The match. It was like I haven't enjoyed a match that much from an entertainment perspective, I think, ever. Like, and not talking about like the best wrestling, but just from a pure entertainment factor. Like, it's exactly the type of thing where wrestling, everyone knows it's not real, and it's so obvious, and that they're playing to that to a certain extent.
And do it in the right moments, don't they? Do it with the right matches and the right people.
It was timed well, and it was just like I think it's kudos as well to the people that booked it, that booked Pac to play the opposite to Orange Cassidy, because it was that badass, but he absolutely played what the character needed to so well, and actually allowed Orange Cassidy to get those gimmicks in, but get them in really well, and to play along with them while still coming across as like this absolute badass. Like, it was so well done.
He was clearly taking Orange Cassidy lightly, as you would, because you've only ever seen him do this, and that's kind of what got him in a bit of a pickle in the match. And then he was on the back foot in certain points, and that worked. I thought that's exactly it, because Pac's clearly an arrogant, bitter tosser, so he's probably thinking he's got this in the bag and it'll be a 2-minute squash. And then when it doesn't go his way, he's got to actually pull out some of the big guns to defeat him, and it makes Orange Cassidy look good. And like you said, from an entertainment point of view, very, very good.
Yeah, the bit I just enjoyed so well. There's a couple of bits like, and to be fair, actually, all the really memorable bits from the match was Orange Cassidy, and it wasn't I'd call the real sort of big wrestling move moments. Even the Orange Cassidy
one, shooting star press that Pac did against Kenny on the table, and then he broke his back on Dynamite. It wasn't that.
No, and it wasn't even the bits. I think when Orange Cassidy came out of soft mode, like, that was really memorable. It was the bits where they were like kicking each other, and then Pac suddenly just joined in. You're like, oh, and the crowd's going wild and going and chanting, "This is wrestling," stuff like that, and everyone's just. It's like an in-house joke, if that makes sense. Like a joke you'd have with your mates that, if you weren't watching it, you probably wouldn't get why everyone's going absolutely crazy for it. But everyone was just enjoying it because it was like a joke at themselves. And the bit where Orange Cassidy was rolling from side to side in the ring.
Oh yeah, that's
great. And at one point, with the camera, like, you could tell that I think Orange Cassidy was laughing at the joke himself. Like, when it zoomed in on his face, and when Pac walked back around to the other side of the ring and he was cackling, you're thinking he's found this fun in himself, and he's just enjoying it. And you could tell that both both men were in there were really enjoying just putting on this absolute show, and it worked out. And this is the thing I think I mentioned earlier. I don't know how they decided to do that from second from last match, but whoever did deserves a pay rise there. Like, that was expertly put, because it was, but I think when it sort of came out, people thought, oh, well, it's just maybe they're trying to calm down between, the Cody fight and the Jericho fight. But I genuinely feel that fight, potentially upstaged both of those in terms of memorability, because I remember more from the Orange Cassidy Pac fight than the two other fights that surrounded it. And equally, I think it was also a completely different style of wrestling. It was a fun match, and the other two there was a lot on the line. So in terms of the story, so really well done all round. In terms of not technically the best, not as good as the tag team world title match, but in terms of pure entertainment, one of my most favourite wrestling matches I think I've ever seen. I was just laughing throughout the whole thing in a good way.
Yeah. Well, that's the good thing. One thing that's AEW seem to do mostly well, and it turns off some people, because some people think wrestling should be X, so they look for X in their wrestling, and if it turns to Y or Z or even A, they don't like it because it's not what they've been conditioned to watch. Whereas AEW really does sprinkle in all different types of wrestling. Like you said, we've just come off this absolute technical, hard-hitting 30-minute epic tag team match into a really personal feud, which was a bit slower pace, a bit more old school, a bit of a slow burner. Then you've got Orange Cassidy and Pac going out there entertaining, but doing it in such a way that it doesn't make Pac like an idiot. Pac doesn't lose anything from this match, and still retains his badass gimmick and whatnot. And Orange Cassidy gets to go out there and show what he's made of, whilst, as you said, making people laugh and entertain them, priming them for the big world title match. And you get so many. I still watch WWE. I fast forward a lot of SmackDown and Raw, but I watch some of the key segments when I get a chance. And now it all feels very much the same. It's the same tone throughout. Ironically, with the exception of the Randy Orton and Edge feud, I think that's sort of the only thing they've got a bit of teeth to it. But it all feels very samey, whereas AEW, they seem to have different types of wrestling, and they all fit together nicely. And you might not like some of the matches. Some people won't like that match, like you mentioned. They won't like Pac versus Orange Cassidy. I think it's stupid. But they should have been satisfied with the tag match. And if that was too high flying for them, they should have been satisfied with MJF versus Cody. And if they weren't satisfied with that, then I imagine they would have liked Moxley v Jericho. Yep. So there's something for everyone there, and I think that's the strength to it, that you can go up and down during the events and feel different things. Like, you can sit there, laugh at that, because it was great entertainment, and not have to think, oh, where's this next feud going to go? Like, you can just sit back and watch it. So
I think it was also, I was going to say, I think it's worth also mentioning that that in that fight as well, we obviously had the Lucha Brothers did pop up and took on best friends. So there's clearly something they're going to try. There's clearly babyface versus heel. They're going to start coming in the next couple of Dynamites. I'd imagine we see the fallout from that in this next episode of Dynamite. Because that's something clearly starting. But I don't like when people just get involved for the sake of things or come down to the ring. You're like, why are they coming in and stuff like that? It doesn't need it. If they're good wrestlers, they don't need it. But this, I think the best friends were sat on the outside. They didn't get involved at all, apart from once when they just threw Pac back into the ring, which I don't think it interfered with the match at all. Actually, stuff like that, I'm more than happy. And I thought, it was really good.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a good match. And you mentioned the rolling out thing that Orange Cassidy did. If you watch closely, Pac copies him later on. Orange Cassidy goes to the top rope to hit a move, and Pac rolls out. Yeah, almost as though he's like, actually, that's not a bad strategy. it's worked and whatnot. But certainly a surprise package, that match. Didn't go too long. Nice and tight, and was entertaining. We then get to the main event, which is the AEW World Title match. I thought they'd done again, excellent build for Moxley v Jericho. Moxley gets busted open in this. He gets posted, and it's actually quite a nasty cut by the looks of things. I don't know again whether it's like a bad blade job, whether he actually smacked his head, but not the high flying style that we might have had previously with the likes of Darby and Sammy Guevara and whatnot. But I liked it as a main event, and I mentioned about the mix that this had. And this was a bit more of a more generic, serious match, but I think it was a good main event, and the live intro for Jericho was 10 times better than Cody's. The little choir doing his Judas song, that was excellent. But what did you make of the main event? I get a feeling you're not the biggest fan of Moxley.
No, I don't know what it is. I feel like I should like Moxley, but I just don't. I don't know. I'm just the character itself. Like it's sort of like a mix between, I guess, sort of like Hangman and Stone Cold Steve Austin, and both characters, Hangman and Stone Cold, I think are great. Moxley, I don't get it. I'm more attributed to Jericho's character. I think he's brilliant, and then I feel like on the mic, Jericho is fantastic. Like you can't beat him in the business of just off the cuff mic skills. I think with Moxley, like he's. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I'm just not sold. And so for me, like when he went over or he won, for me, I was a bit like, I would have rather seen sort of more Jericho and more, shit talking on the mic, moving forward. But the match was good in itself, and like when they went into the crowd, and I like the fact that little things that happened, like when Jericho had the sign and tried to put it over his head, didn't he, and stuff like that. And like when he grabbed the bell and he rang ding ding and stuff like that.
That's why Jericho's the master, even at 49 years old.
Yeah, he's just really good.
He doesn't have to do all the crazy stuff, but there's little touches like that.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what he brings to the fight. I knew that the thing was as well, and I knew Moxley was going to take that eye patch off. It was just one. I thought that's going to. So obvious that's going to happen before the fight, and so when it was like done, I was like, I sort of expect that to come. And two, the other thing I've noticed is bloody through the whole thing, he's worn. So like in all the Dynamites, he's worn this eye patch that's sort of like a freeway thing, so it doesn't come off his face. But then on the actual pay-per-view, like wore a pirate one, like which is one, and I'm like, well, that's so easy to fall off, and so or / rip off. So why would you be wearing that on a pay-per-view? Equally, like he would have his eye taped up underneath when it would move on the other one, whereas you could see from time to time that eye wasn't taped up this time. So like there was little things that I just sort of saw that I thought, that's going to happen. So I sort of predict that. But like the match itself was solid. It went well. I thought the finish was a bit poor, if I'm being honest. I thought like it was just happened, and I was like, oh, all right. I feel like I don't know. I felt like it could have been a bit bigger. I guess it's a bit more old school, the fight itself, the match, and I guess when you're going old school, then your finisher should just win the match. So that's sort of more what it was like. It's not like, I guess which day now is like you suddenly have to get your finisher in several bloody times and then get like now each wrestler has about 6 different finishers and so like they've got 6 different moves to go to and stuff like that. I to be fair, I sort of. The build up as well to the match, I wasn't overly sold in, because I think from the very get go I knew that Mox was going to get that title fight, because like I think they had the tournament style thing, and I thought, well, Mox is going to go all the way through this, and so at no point did I feel like anything was ever in doubt. I was a bit like, and then when he sort of stabbed Santana, is it?
Santana,
in the eye, I thought, is this actually them going to maybe get Mox to lose now, and he sort of does that sort of turn semi-heel, because why do that if you're trying to be sort of like babyface? I don't know, like for me it was a good match, and I think I ranked it sort of middle of the table out of all of them, and it was sort of like a clean match, and I enjoyed all the Jericho stuff. I think the problem is that there were so many fantastic fights on the card that it just sort of fell down a bit in my eyes.
Yeah, no, and you hate Moxley, which has become apparent, which is cruel. I think this is we both predicted or both thought Jericho was going to win. I thought it was early for him to lose the belt. I thought there'd be some sort of screw finish, especially when like the inner circle
Yeah,
were
I
out
forgot,
there.
yeah.
Santana and Ortiz, then
Jake Hager came
fucking
down.
Hager came down, and then Sammy come in, hit him with the belt, and I was like, oh, well, it might be one of these. And I thought that's fine. At least it's not a clean win and whatnot. But he got the job done, and it drives me mad when they keep kicking out of finishers. So I really like it when it's just one and done, which this kind of was. He kind of done the snap paradigm shift and then done the elevated one straight after. But I think they should protect those moves because they should mean something like no one's kicked out of Jericho's Judas effect. Yeah. Hence, in this match, he didn't hit it because he obviously knew he wasn't going over. So rather than have it hit and then for him to kick out, he just didn't. He had him duck it, which is a smart way of protecting the move. But I always enjoy the big title fights when they're done like this. I think they do have a certain style to them. They very rarely are like the Omega and the Hangman, the Young Buck type matches, although I won't put it past AEW to get some of those on eventually. But this is now, for me, this is a bit of a test for Jericho. Like, can he retain his aura and his star power that he's had without the belt? Like, if anyone can do it, it's Jericho. But really, that belt, I think, has helped establish him and helped establish the company as well. Yeah. Like, to start off with, when you turn it on, like, people that hadn't watched in 10, 15 years, they go, oh, Chris Jericho, oh, and he's the champ. Okay, I know who Chris Jericho is. This must be legit. And Moxley's come over from WWE as well, so there's going to be people that have been watching it more modernly that will know who he is. But this is a bit of a test, I think, for both AEW and Jericho to see whether he can still be as over without the belt. And I think he will be. And I don't know if they'll do a rematch or what they're going to do next with the belt, who's going to go after it. But definitely a test for both company and Jericho.
I think in my head, I was like, I thought that Jericho would retain the belt. And that's why I picked the Young Bucks to win, because I knew a belt would change it's a pay-per-view. One belt's got to change on the pay-per-view. Yeah. So it's either going to be the tag match or the world title, because the women's had just changed literally the week before. So so I thought Jericho would hold on to it. Mainly, as you said, he's built up so much, and actually a lot of people come in. Like, for example, I've come in, and to be fair, I think it's fair to say I've come in at original state, and I recognise Jericho, and there's all these things like the little bit of bubbly people were saying and stuff like that. Yeah. It's all Jericho sayings and the champion, like all that stuff that goes out of the window a little bit once he's lost the title. Like the Le Champion, like that's not a thing anymore. A little
bit off the FGL.
Yeah, the little bit of the little bit of the bubbly. Once again, like why would he do that again? Like it's he's not the champion, and so like they're all sorts of celebration things. So they were doing that, and in my head, the way I think I'd hoped it would go was Jericho would hold it, Mox would sort of, cool down a bit, but then they would build up Kenny, and Kenny would be the one to take it off Jericho. I sort of felt like that would probably sort of, the most sort of pure wrestlers that because Kenny from the indie scenes was huge. And
in Japan, it was just like ridiculous.
And there's a lot, he's a massive fan favourite, but so I was a little bit surprised, but it's I don't know what's going to happen next, and I think you're right. As in, I don't know. I was thinking about is Jericho going to take a bit of a break now? Cool down a bit and actually spend a bit. Maybe he's got a contract out in Japan for a few months or something like that. Like these things happen, and then it would just.
I did hear he's got a tour or something in the summer, so maybe that's played into it. In that, obviously, Double or Nothing's the end of May, just before the summer. Yeah. If he was in a title match there, you could almost predict that he was going to have the belt off, like taken off him, because he might not be around for a couple of weeks, or a couple of months. Sorry, so I don't know specifically.
They may build it like and have a rematch at that pay per view then, and then Jericho loses again, and then that sort of sends it, because at the moment I don't know whether, because it feels like I personally don't know if I really want to see Jericho against Mox again. There's nothing. No. Like I feel like it's sort of done. Like there's nothing. Like not like the tag. I feel like that's not finished. I feel like this is resolved now, and it's sort of neatly tidied up. And there's going to be a bit of aftermath or whatever. But I feel like they should go their own ways. And then I just don't.
Maybe they'll do a TV defense. Maybe it'll be like a low key TV defense. Like it'll be on Dynamite, and it'll be like a 20 minute Dynamite match, and Mox will beat him again, and that'll end it. And then they'll build whoever the next challenger is for him up to the pay-per-view, because it's still a long way to go, like 3.5 months till that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is like who
Only 3 months.
I don't know who they would put at the moment against Mox. Like,
no, I don't
like I'm
either.
looking at the roster, and like they're like you could like the only person I could think is like the only real heel they've got in the top 5 at the moment is Pac. Like obviously Jericho's heel, but like he's a lovable heel, whereas Elite, so that doesn't really count. So Pac's therefore the only one that they could, and I just like, and it'll be a great match, but we all know Pac won't win the title off Mox. So like you just know the outcome. So what's the point in doing that if everyone knows the outcome? So I just don't know where they're going to go with it. I'll be interested. I'll see what they do.
They should have done my idea. They should have kept Pac really strong, have the Iron Man stay as a draw against Kenny, have him beat Orange Cassidy, get him on a bit of a roll, and then there might have been more oomph behind Pac. But because he's lost to Kenny in the Iron Man match, although he's got a bit of an out because it's an overtime and all that nonsense, but it's a loss on his record. That kind of takes the steam out of him. MJF is not really ready yet for that. I still think that he'll challenge for the belt, but I don't know if it's quite ready now.
Yeah.
See, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, the one match I do want to see is Moxley versus Omega, because they had a lights out unsanctioned match at the end of the last pay-per-view in November.
Yeah.
But it was just a pure hardcore match, and a lot of people didn't like it. But I think they could have an actual proper good like singles straight wrestling match. I think they'd get on. They'd have an excellent match.
And Mox once again, a bit like Jericho, Mox could be a lovable heel. Quite happily. I'm
not against having the babyface program, like 2 babyfaces against each other. I know it's not always, it's frowned upon, but it can work. Like Rock and Austin did it back in the day when they were at WrestleMania and whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, Austin ended up turning at the end of that, but I think they're a little bit less married. They could go down that route rather than just artificially turning someone for the sake of it. They'll be like, these 2 are the best. They're both babyface. It's like the Young Bucks and Omega and Hangman. They were 2 babyface teams, and they had a great match.
Yeah.
And it creates a bit more of an interesting dynamic between the fans as well. It's like whose side are you on?
Yeah. Unless there's, I guess we can mention it because no one really turned up apart from in the dark match. That someone new comes to the table. That's just because who was the Samoan around the islands. Guy.
Oh yeah, Jeff Cobb.
Cobb, for example. So they could, I reckon, they could quite happily over the course of 2 months build something up between sort of like a Jeff Cobb, for example, like if he's especially in Jericho's corner, and therefore there's this, because like he came out and he absolutely destroyed Mox when he came out, and he just disappeared again since. So there's definitely the ability to do that, and that would probably make more sense than Pac in my mind.
Yeah. What about, do you think Jericho's age has anything to do with it? Like, he's 49, he can still have good matches, but you think maybe they're thinking maybe it's time to take him out of all the main events because he's getting on a bit. Like,
definitely.
Eventually, he'll get to the stage where he might not be able to have the same quality matches.
It definitely showed. He's not a young pup anymore, and like you can tell like by some of the moves that they do now, like they're just older, and that's just what it is. It's like Dustin on the early match. Just you can see that they're just older, and it is what it is. Jericho knows that he can fall back on his mic and comedic sort of sense, which and people love, and he's got that, and he's still a really good professional wrestler. But yeah, I to be fair, like and I think maybe that's why he maybe sort of in WWE wasn't sort of fell down the pecking order a bit, because you just get on a little bit, and as much as you've got,
Right, they just had Goldberg win the fucking belt.
That's
52
true.
years old.
That is true. I do. But that was a bit odd.
Over there. Yeah. Honestly, it's crazy. That's like a mini story in itself. What must be going on beyond the scenes there?
But yeah, it's like I don't feel like that's the reason he's lost it. I feel like it's probably like he's probably got another commitment coming up, because I feel like if I was AEW, I would have kept him having the championship as long as possible, because people will be coming over because they know him more. It's keep their sort of streak going type thing. But I feel like Jericho's probably got something on as you said, in the summer, and so that's probably the main reason they lost that.
Yeah. Let's just run through the order of the matches that you started with from top to bottom. So your best match all the way down to your least liked match.
Yeah. You want me to read them?
Yeah.
So obviously the favourite match was the Bucks versus Hangman and Kenny. Then it was then it was Pac versus Orange Cassidy, followed by Darby versus Sammy, then Jericho versus Mox, then MJF versus Cody, and like that, I think that just says it all. Like MJF and Cody are fifth on that list, and that was a really bloody good match. Then I had on my list SCU versus the Dark Order, which is the dark match, which we haven't spoke about here. But taking that aside, then it was the Dustin versus Jake fight, and then finally Rose versus Chris Statlander, or Nyla Rose, should I say, versus Chris Statlander as my least favourite.
Yeah, mine's not a dissimilar order. I've got Omega Hangman versus the Bucks, Moxley v Jericho, Darby versus Guevara, Pac v Cassidy, MJF Cody, Hager versus Dustin, and then obviously our favourite women's match of the year, sitting rock bottom. And I kind of separated them out. I feel like the Omega and the Bucks match and the Hangman match was like in a league of its own.
Yeah.
And then really the next three, sort of Moxley, Jericho, Darby, Guevara, Pac, Cassidy, were sort of in a block together, like the next like really good matches. Then MJF Cody just a little bit below that, and then just a little bit below that Hager, Dustin, and then way down the pecking order was the women's title match. But that's that. I will run through the predictions that we made. So starting from, they're in random order because I didn't know the order of the card when I put these together, so they're just in the order they were put. So Jericho Moxley, we both put Jericho, both got that wrong. Kenny and Hangman versus the Bucks, we both put the Bucks, got that wrong. Cody MJF, you went MJF, I went Cody, so I was wrong, you was right. Dustin versus Hager, I went Hager, you went Dustin, so switch there. Darby versus Guevara was Darby, we both went for Darby, no change there. Same with Nyla Rose versus Chris Statlander, we both went for Nyla Rose. Same with Pac versus Orange Cassidy, we both went for Pac as well. And the Dark Order sort of pre-show match, we both put versus SCU, we both put Dark Order as well. And you put an interesting little note on yours as well. Christopher Daniels joins the Dark Order.
I thought I had that.
You took the bait.
I thought I had that as well at one point. I was like, I'm right. But yeah, it's
So you wasn't expecting him to be the leader then? You just thought he'd join up? Because the next question is, does the Exalted One reveal himself? And you put no.
Yeah.
So you thought you were just going to be part of the crew, but not the leader of it.
Yeah, I think that so he just sort of, they were like trying to tempt him, and he was like no, but then he sort of disappeared over the last couple of Dynamites. I think like an SCU sort of just been on their own. And you're thinking, what's going on here? Are they trying to sort of allude to something? But they're
fallen angel in.
Yeah, exactly.
Or Curry Man.
The Curry Man, fucking hell. That was TNA.
That was him, wasn't it?
Well, that's what everyone says. It was that TNA, wasn't it? Fucking hell. But yeah, like I think it was an interesting like little twist. They obviously still not revealed the Exalted One. Worth mentioning, Colt Cabana turned up in that at the end, which was just really fucking odd, and I don't know why. Like I know.
Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I know who he is. But like,
how do you know who he is? Because until I started watching it again, the only reason I really know who he is because he's on He was on NWA Power, which I've been watching. But you haven't been watching that. So how the hell do you know who Colt Cabana is?
So Colt was it?
You just recognise his name?
Yeah, I maybe I'm just being wrong here. I'm sure he was in one of the big like TNAs or something like that before. Or is he not?
Was at some point. I don't know. I'll look it up now.
I don't know. Was he not in WWE at any point? Maybe not. What was it? I recognised the name and
Ring of Honor, Independence. Oh, he was in WWE between 2007 and 2009.
Yeah. So So there you go. That's probably where I recognise it from. But I loosely brushed over that. Yeah, that's where I recognise him from. But the reason I thought it was odd was because I couldn't. I know they were in Chicago, and they mentioned he's a Chicago native, so that's why he's come out. Blah blah blah. But I was like, has he joined AEW, or is he just sort of turned up because it's in his hometown and they just paid him for one off?
Equally, he's joined.
Or is he just? And equally, why do it on the Dark episode if they obviously it's therefore not meant to be a big thing, or is it? It feels like was it meant? And like so, like I don't know. I just felt like it wasn't very well done. And he just turned up for like 10 seconds. and then got beaten the crap out of, and then obviously Daniels comes in and saves the day. So like,
well, he teased he was the leader. He come out in a cloak.
Yeah.
It wasn't him, but that was a bit weird. I assumed it was just because it was in Chicago, but then I looked on social media and it was like Colt Cabana's part of All Elite. And I was like, And I don't really like his stuff. I don't know. I withhold judgment, but what I saw in NWA, it was okay, but like his finisher was this stupid like pin-in combination. You'll probably see it at some point. He's more of an entertainer wrestler than like a high flyer or a blood and guts style. But maybe they'll do something a bit different with him. Maybe I don't think he'll be making waves on Dynamite anytime soon. I think he'll be more of an AEW Dark show type. But yeah, does the Exalted One reveal himself? So the leader of the Dark Order. I put yes. And you put no.
Yeah.
I'd assumed that because they were teasing it, and at this point I thought their match was on the main pay-per-view card.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, they'll drop it in there. But as soon as I saw it on the pre-show, I was like, wow, that ain't going to come true. Now they're not going to drop it in here.
I think it'll happen on the next pay-per-view now, or actually it might happen on Blood and Guts. One because
it's Jimmy Havoc.
Jimmy Havoc is definitely going to. Yeah, it turns up. No, I don't think it'll be Jimmy Havoc, but it's because Jimmy Havoc is a heel, but he's also like a babyface heel, if that makes sense. Because people like him. What was I going to say? I just don't think there's been that much Dark Order on what I'd call the main Dynamite.
You know why that was? Is because before you started watching it, the very last show of 2019, they basically beat up all the top baby faces like the Young Bucks, Kenny. Hangman didn't come out, so that was sort of part of like that story still. But people hated it, like genuinely, like it got a really poor reception.
Really?
And since then they've toned it back. Like they got rid of the Nightmare Collective. I don't even know if you even saw that, but that was like what Luther was part of with Mel and
when they were chopping off hair and stuff like that.
That's it. Yeah, they got rid of all that. They'd like literally.
I saw that.
They were just going crap.
When I first started watching it, and it was probably right when it started, I was thinking, why the fuck is there so many factions in this fucking organisation? Yeah. Because you had the Dark Order, you had Jericho's Inner Circle,
the Bunny that came out as well.
Inner Circle, you have the Nightmare Collective, you have the BLE, and there was about 5 or 6 different fucking groups that were like not like tag teams, but like we're a group of people, and it was just like there's just too many.
We're all recruiting. Yeah. There's all recruiting people.
Yeah.
It was like, well, hang on.
Yeah, and so like I felt I don't really like the Dark Order sort of storyline. I'd be quite happy for that just to slowly sort of fade off. Personally, but it feels.
What about if the leader is someone interesting?
Well, that would be interesting. Yeah, Taker comes out or something like that. Imagine that. But yeah,
I think there's a lot of rumour and innuendo in the wrestling business, and there are rumours of certain people who it could be because of certain contracts ending. I'm not going to say who it is because I think if it does happen that way, then it'll hopefully be something that you're surprised with and interested in, but we'll see.
But by them beating SCU, to me, that's them saying, right, you're going to get a bit of a push now, because SCU just lost a well, not just, but like a couple of weeks ago, they were champions like 3-4 weeks ago, and so suddenly now for them to be them, in my head, that's them saying, right, Dark Order, you're going to get a bit of a push now, and so I expect us to start seeing a bit more of them. I expect them to feature heavily in the Blood and Guts. I would imagine the Blood and Guts thing to be a lot more of the hardcore things coming up. So the more of what I call the hardcore sort of fighters are going to get sort of some of their opportunity in it. But yeah, it's I'm glad that they do need to somehow tone down the Dark Order, but like it could work. It just needs to be done.
It's not as bad as it was, trust me. It was ridiculous at one point. I mean, they got rid of the Nightmare Collective altogether, but I think they're going to see out this Exalted One.
Was the Nightmare Collective that had Luther? Who was cutting the head?
Mel, Luther, Brandy, and Awesome Kong.
Awesome Kong, yeah. Exactly. I was trying to think, was that Nyla Rose, but it wasn't. It was Awesome Kong. So has Awesome Kong been just sacked out of AEW?
Yeah, well, basically, she's old and she gets injured quite a bit, and also I think she's an actor in a TV series called Glow.
Oh, right, yeah.
So she's not there all the time. And I think her body's just not up to like wrestling regularly, so
Fair enough.
they kind of just they wrote it sort of off in a dark episode, like just Mel and Luther turned on her and threw her into the stairs. We haven't seen her since.
And that's the thing, actually, Brandy, like she's gone from being in Nightmare Collective to suddenly being a massive babyface with Cody.
She's back to where she was at the start. That's where she started, and I mean, there's, and this is something I was going to get into after about whether they do enough to tell all the stories in Dynamite. I think there's still gaps there.
Yeah, some of the stuff's happening on Dark, and I'll put it out there, I don't watch Dark. Apart from if you say, hey, look, and the only reason I've watched the last couple is because Jimmy Havoic's been on it, and I thought, flying the flag for the British and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'll watch that. And I watched the Kip Sabian Dark, which was versus Joey, and that was absolutely fantastic. Another one of the fantastic fights that was on Dark. But like, they are concluding feuds and stuff like that on Dark, and I'm like, don't do it on Dark, do it on Dynamite, and there is some absolute trash that gets through to Dynamite. Don't let it get through. Like that 4-way women's fight the week before, I still don't understand the point of that. They could have been done. They could have, given that, because it feels like the Jimmy, for example, like the Kip Joey feud's now been finished on Dark. That the Nightmare Collective was finished on Dark, and it's just like I appreciate. Yeah, I don't know. It just disappears.
I think they just didn't want to. I think people didn't want it on Dynamite, so like, at least we'll do it here. So yeah, there's loose ends for sure.
Yeah.
Does anyone team or managers turn? If so, no. We both said there would be turns, and you went for Daniels and I went for the Young Bucks. Both wrong. Are there going to be any new wrestlers or managers that debut? Now, essentially you've been stitched up here because the way I've done it is...
You said say yes or no.
Colt Cabana didn't appear on the main show, so you put yes, I put no, so that's that one.
Well, that's a point for me.
No, it's not, because he didn't appear on the pay-per-view. Will there be a DQ finish? No, we both said no, and then will there be a count-out? No. In the end, if you count up the points, we got 8 each.
Oh, did we?
Including that little... Yeah.
I think we got the same for most things, except I think I got MJF and you got Jake. I think that was the only sort of difference.
So between us, we got every match right, other than the tag match and the Moxley and Jericho match.
See, and I was close to going the other way on that. I knew a title would finish, and I just couldn't figure out which way it was going to go. I was just trying to figure out. I knew it was going to be one of them, and so I knew it wouldn't be both, and I knew it'd be one, but I couldn't quite. Yeah. I was basically I didn't flip a coin. I just thought where would, and I think my reason was I think Jericho leading the company as the champion made more sense, and so therefore give the titles to the Bucks. But yeah, they went the other way.
Yeah, I'm annoyed because the way Dynamite ended in the go home show to Revolution was Jericho doing the paradigm shift on Moxley, like laying him out and stand on top of him. Now, classic like WWF booking from like the 90s is whoever gets the last laugh. This is what me and my brother used to call it. Whoever gets the last laugh on the program before the pay-per-view will lose at the pay-per-view. And I thought, well, that was back in the day. It was like 20 years ago. They won't use the same philosophy here, so I think it'll be Jericho. Like you said, it makes more sense. I was like, no, Moxley's gone over, and he was laid out on the pay-per-view before. So I'll be watching to see if that becomes a pattern.
Yeah.
Whoever comes off at the last laugh gets to go over in the actual match itself. But overall, what would you score the pay-per-view in terms of like out of 10 using maybe a 0.5 system?
I would say a solid 8. I feel 7.5 is just putting a 7 near it just seems too low, because it actually generally everything on that card except the women's title fight was a really good fight, and something I could happily sit through and watch again. And I'd say that's probably only the reason it loses a couple of those points it loses a point for, I guess, the women's fight, just because it just, even if it was okay, I would probably given it an 8.5. But it just was such a poor fight. It just lost some there. And there was a few like little niggly things, as I said, that you pick up on and go, why did why did Dustin need to kiss Jake's wife and stuff like that? And just a couple of little things I was thinking, I wouldn't have done it like that. But generally, a solid 8. It was fantastic. It was I sat through happily watching it.
Yeah,